Terms like global warming and climate change are often thrown about without careful thought about what the words actually mean, which can lead to some people, including some politicians, into a misunderstanding about what is actually happening, either deliberately or through ignorance. Now, the easiest one to see this happening is with the term global warming. Global warming means that, on average, the temperature on the surface of the Earth is rising. However, this doesn't mean that the entire Earth heats up by the same amount. There are even some locations which are getting colder rather than warmer. But since it's a global rise in average temperature, this does also mean that some areas are rising much faster than that average temperature rise, to balance out those areas which are either not rising as quickly or even are cooling. One of the key areas that this faster than average rise is happening is Greenland, where the average temperature has already risen by 1.5 degrees Celsius and shows no sign of the rise actually stopping. The rise in average temperature in Greenland is due to something called polar amplification. It also has an impact on the Arctic, Canada, and Siberia. The most obvious cause of this amplification is due to the albedo effect. It's basically where the sun shines on the snow or ice, the energy from the sun is reflected away from the ice and eventually back into space. But as the ice melts, the darker soil and rock underneath the ice is uncovered, and now when the sunlight shines, strikes the ground, the energy is actually absorbed by the soil and rock, warming the ground up. A more complicated cause is also something called lapse rate feedback, which relates to water vapor, altitude, and again reflected radiation. It's a little too complex to go into in full in this video. Now, the climate on Greenland is never actually going to be warm. It should only just get above freezing during the summer months before falling back to way below freezing for most of the rest of the year. So as Greenland starts to lose the ice sheet covering most of the land, the world should really take notice. Now, Greenland is a huge island between Iceland and North America. According to the Norse sagas or histories, Greenland was settled by Eric the Red, who came to Greenland with his extended family, fleeing Iceland due to charges of manslaughter, and in an attempt to attract other settlers to the new land, he proposed naming it Greenland to make it sound more favourable than Iceland. Around the coastline of Greenland is a very narrow strip of land which is barely suitable for farming and general human habitation. But about 80% of Greenland is covered in a thick ice sheet. Eric the Red and his followers, though, weren't the first people to actually make it to Greenland. There was a society of Inuits been on Greenland for nearly 3,000 years before Eric the Red arrived. Life on Greenland was a struggle. They managed to survive through years by hunting caribou and whales. The Inuits probably arrived from Greenland from Alaska and Canada, and when disputes eventually broke out between the Norse and the Inuits, some of them actually returned back that way. It's currently estimated that as Greenland warms, it's losing over 200 billion tons of ice each and every year, and that rate of melting is actually increasing. During the summer, some of the ice turns to water. That water then finds its way to the bottom of the glaciers on Greenland. This in turn reduces the friction holding the glaciers in place, meaning not only are the glaciers losing mass directly by melting, it increased the speed at which the glaciers are moving towards the ocean, pushing more ice into the oceans, will later melt as icebergs carve off from the glaciers and float south from Greenland and towards the international shipping lanes, taking ships from Europe to America. The addition of all this extra water being added to the oceans, along with the rise in average ocean temperatures, have already contributed to ocean levels rising, making low-lying areas around the world more dangerous to live in. The more the Greenland ice melts, the greater risk that a sudden storm could represent to those areas. Only Antarctica has a larger ice sheet than Greenland, so the threat posed by the ice sheet on Greenland melting is massive. The ice sheet not only covers a huge area, in many places the ice is currently over a mile deep, so there's still a lot more ice on Greenland that could potentially melt. Now, the weight of all that ice has also actually depressed the centre of Greenland, so why most of the mountains on Greenland are only near the ocean, away from the large mass of ice. that if all the ice melted on Greenland, the weight of that ice no longer pressing down on land would eventually rebound back to its near natural height. But currently, the effect of the depression is so great that much of the interior of Greenland is actually currently below sea level. If all the ice on Greenland were to melt, Greenland would no longer actually be an island, but an archipelago, with shallow ocean water filling the middle of Greenland, at least until land rebounded back later.